The world is ending. Run for your lives. It's the new Y2K. It's the halving. Happy halving out there, you Bitcoin freaks. This is all I've been seeing in my YouTube algorithm for literally the last 3 months. If you don't know, I'm about to teach you and show you out there in YouTube land how you can get rich. And I'm not talking about overnight. I'm talking about retirement, the new retirement, the thing that's going to save our generation from living in the poorhouse by the time we're in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. By the way, before we get going, leave us a comment, baby boys. And I'd say baby boys because there are no girls watching this. Leave a comment, shoot us a like, and subscribe to the channel. You know you want to. 20,000 new subscribers added in the first month alone of this new Johnny Mitchell channel revamp that we've had. So thank you so much to those of you subscribed and returning. Let's talk about it's not what the headlines are telling you, okay? Open your feed right now, okay? And you'll see, depending on what time of day it is and who's writing the article, it's Bitcoin is going to 1 million by next week. And then somebody else, Bitcoin is going to 0. It's both nonsense on both parties, both sides, okay? The people saying that, like Cheryl Webb, who says that Bitcoin could go to 1.5 million by the end of next year, she runs a crypto fund and wants you to throw in your money to let her manage it. People like Peter Schiff, who we should be having on this podcast very shortly, if he could ever get some internet over there in Puerto Rico, he claims that by next Tuesday, Bitcoin will be worth 0 and literally millions of people around the world will lose billions. But guess what? He runs a gold fund. He's a dinosaur and he's mad that Bitcoin technology is literally going to save the world. And he would rather have you buy gold, which is, look, he runs a gold fund. I get it. I don't blame these people. The world is a stage. We're all trying to do our best to market. I like gold. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be buying gold. I buy an ounce of gold every month with my new discretionary income, okay? I just click 1 ounce of gold, right? It's started off at 2,100 this year, right? About 2,000, 2,100. It's up to about 24.5. So look, it's not Bitcoin appreciation, but it's a good inflation hedge. It is a good, because you see that inflation numbers starting to tick back up again. Biden and the sycophants are running for cover. They don't know how to spin this one. Inflation is sticky. Nope, it's not sticky. It's actually literally trending back upward. So gold is a beautiful inflation hedge. It's nobody is saying the otherwise, okay? But it's not is it going to make you wealthy enough to retire on when it comes time for it, the way the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ did for our parents, our boomer spoiled parents? Probably not. Now, Peter Schiff will tell you that gold will be $30,000, $40,000 an ounce by the end of next year. The world is ending. Literally, we're about to have a currency crisis, etc. Realistically, it's going to be maybe a decade plus before we have our currency crisis. And by the end of next year, gold, if we're lucky, could push to 3,500, 4,000 an ounce. Now, if you buy right now, that's still a great return. That's a 25 to a 30% return. If you're buying ounces at $2,400, that's not bad. It's not bad at all, but it's not going to, you got to buy a lot of gold. You're going to have to buy bricks and bricks and kilos of gold in order to, retire a millionaire. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is the best performing asset in history. These are facts, okay? It's beat new all-time highs every single run. We're now waiting for the fourth cycle, for the fourth bull bear cycle, meaning it's gone boom and then crashed 3 times since its inception in 2010. 2010 was when Bitcoin began, right? And, the people that were early in on it, like the Wojciechowski twins, the people who invented Facebook and had it stolen from them, they cashed out for, literally billions. That's happened boomed and bust 3 times now. We're on the 4th one. And in that time, they've just been developing the technology more and more and more. You have your Bitcoin miners. It's been adopted as the currency in El Salvador and the Central African Republic, okay? Which doesn't sound like much, and I agree with you. Those aren't exactly booming economies, but it's a start, right? And I guarantee you, those countries' currencies have stabilized now that people are hedged against inflation. Bitcoin is not only an inflation hedge, it will soon be a digital gold. It will be in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other brilliant people, hedge fund managers, and I do call hedge fund people, even though many of them are scum of the earth, they really are savants when it comes to this kind of stuff. They felt comfortable creating the ETF and tossing billions and billions of dollars of their clients' money into Bitcoin. They say that, it will easily be in the millions. I completely agree with them. And let's talk about why. But first of all, let's talk about the halving before we get into how I think Bitcoin will literally free humanity from the tyranny of government largesse, meaning rampant government spending, hyperinflation. We already see it in places like Africa, like Zimbabwe. We all know that people, to buy, a bottle of water, you have to lug a bunch of Zimbabwe bills on your back, like Tony Montana, bringing in all of that dope money in the up montage of Scarface, right? We already know that's happening, but in Western countries, it is very likely, and this is where Peter Schiff is accurate about a lot of this stuff. In this country specifically, and especially in Europe, you may see real hyperinflation in the coming years because we are so loaded with debt, and governments, instead of raising interest rates to the point where we have a massive recession, they will just turn the money printer back on, lower interest rates, save the economy, right? But just cause runaway inflation. And then the cat, finally, you can't put it back in the bag. Bitcoin is going to save people from losing all of the value of the money you have sitting in your bank, okay? You should not be sitting on a lot of cash right now. Go look the stats up. I don't have them in front of me, but essentially your cash loses value every day, but every month, every quarter, the US government loads up on $1 trillion of new debt every 3 months. So what do you think is happening to your money sitting in the bank? You need to get it into inflation hedges. Gold is one of them, but Bitcoin, when the technology finally does become ubiquitous, it's going to take off, and there's no way it can't be. There's no way people aren't going to make trillions of dollars off of it. Okay. But let's save that for the end. I'm getting chills. Okay. I'm getting chills up my spine talking about Bitcoin. Let's talk about the halving though. So if you don't know the halving, just real quick, I'm sorry, you people know what the halving is. You're internet bugs. You know what the halving is. The halving makes it the supply cut in half. It makes it harder for Bitcoin miners to produce the Bitcoins. Okay. Bitcoin is capped. It's finite. 21 million Bitcoin is the total amount of Bitcoin that exists and that can ever exist. They've already mined about 19 million of them. How crazy is that? So what they're doing is now they're cutting in half the ability of these Bitcoin miners to actually mine and produce Bitcoin. Obviously, that is going to shrink supply and eventually cause the price to go up. But look, you open up your phone today, the market's not reacting yet. Bitcoin's been hovering. It's up a little bit from the lows the last couple of days. It was around 60 to 62. Now it's hovering in the mid 64s. It's just kind of sitting there. It's up 1.5%. I'm into Solano and some other altcoins. They've dipped down, now they're back up from their weak lows. So look, I mean, the sky is not falling one way or the other. It didn't bottom out. A bunch of people didn't sell proving that this isn't some kind of like pump and dump scheme. Okay. It's not like Michael Saylor was telling people to go use their pensions and borrow money from the bank to buy Bitcoin so it can pump his own shares up, right? And then bam, sell it all. And it's also not like people scrambled to buy before, it shot up to 200,000 overnight. None of that happened. It's just not going to work that way. And that's very common. Like whenever I call it the Y2K of financial events, we all thought in the year 1999 going into 2000, they had to adjust all of the calendars in the digital system. Everybody thought this was going to crash the global computer system. It didn't do any of that. Nobody cared. Like we figured it out. So, but that's a good thing. I think this is proof that even though, yes, still is a risk on asset, as they call it. You could tell I've been watching my financial news. It is still a risk on asset. It's still volatile, but it is a real asset. This is not, as dinosaurs like Peter Schiff would say, this is not a .com bubble. All right. This is not even a real estate bubble. This will be a digital gold soon. But for now, it just remains an asset class, and it tracks with the stock market. You know what I mean? That's unfortunately, like we all want to believe that it doesn't matter how bad the stock market does. Bitcoin will just the faith in Bitcoin will just keep going up and up and up. It'll get there, but with what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening with the Fed, Chairman Powell has not said that he's going to cut interest rates or raise them. That's causing, and plus, you've got layoffs that are making the news now. So the markets are scared. People are buying gold and getting out of cash, and that's making the traditional S&P 500 and the NASDAQ lose value. So what's happening is then Bitcoin loses value. It'll go back up for a little bit. This is how I understand it, though, guys. I have a good friend of mine, not a financial guru, kind of a dummy, really. He wants to know, should I buy now because of the halving? And I'm not a financial expert. I am just watching YouTube videos of swing traders and different people in the business, and I try to come to my own conclusion. What I am told is that in the immediacy, in the short term, if we crack 74,000, if Bitcoin can crack that 74,000 peak, that's when you're going to see upward momentum to get to 100,000, like we've been told it's going to get to before the end of the year, maybe even higher than that. If it starts going down, right, and the support level on the bottom end is 49,000. That's what's called the support level. Now, if it goes below 49,000, get your cash ready, because if it stops in the 30s or even the low 20s, if Bitcoin goes to 29 or 28,000, buy like you've never believed it, right? Buy as much as you can, because now it's, now we'd be in a position where they were in 2017, when after the second bust cycle, when Bitcoin was down to, you guys can tell me how much Bitcoin was down to on its previous low. It was down to like $9,000 or something. So imagine if you bought Bitcoin at $9,000. You're way up right now, right? You would literally own a whole Bitcoin. I don't even own a whole Bitcoin. I got in too late. I bought recently when the price was in the 60,000s, like it is now. So I'm basically just even, but I'm long on Bitcoin, and everybody should be long on it, right? But if you're just trying to wait to buy, if you want to buy the most of it, right, the most of it that you can at the cheapest price, hold right now, okay? And if you see it trending downwards and it goes below 49,000, that's when your greedy little palms get set. Any kind of cash you have at hand, or that you can get your hands on legally, do so and put it in Coinbase, put it on the apps, and get ready to fire when it finally reaches its bottom. But On the other hand, if it cracks 74, like I said, I think that's when you're going to see momentum that goes up, and it's not really going to go down much past the support level. That 74 could be the new support level. And then we really could potentially by the end of the year get up past 100,000, maybe closer to 150,000. I sort of doubt that, but that's okay. But that's where I'm at right now. That's what I think's going to happen. That's what I think's going on in the immediacy, in the short term with the Bitcoin halving. So I'm paying very close attention to it, obviously. But here's the thing: no matter if you're a swing trader, a lay person, whoever you talk to, a financial expert, somebody you may be watching, somebody who, a New York guy that has a whole fund, a whole hedge fund based around Bitcoin and crypto. Everybody's long on it. It doesn't matter if they think that Bitcoin is going to run or if it's going to go back down. Everybody sees the future as Bitcoin, as it's just like kind of it can't not become huge. Here's why, and I didn't even know this till yesterday. We are in this phase of Bitcoin as a new technology. Compare it to the internet. Right now, Bitcoin is like the internet in 1999. It's in its first phase. It's just coming out of its very first phase. It doesn't even have 1 billion users yet. There's now what, Brian? Is there 8 billion people on planet Earth? I feel like there's 7.5 to 8 billion people on Earth. Not even 1 billion users again. Once it hits 1 billion users, did I get that right? 8 billion people. Once Bitcoin hits 1 billion users, I think that's when you're going to see it start going to the moon and not stabilize for a very long time, till the 2030s or the 2040s. And then you're just going to see consistent tables, right? Up a little bit, plateau, up a little bit, plateau. Because you think about the fundamentals. Think about the fundamentals of it, right? For poor people, the poorest of people in the world who live in these places like the Central African Republic, like Zimbabwe, like El Salvador, like Argentina, right? Places where government spending and government mismanagement and corruption and money printing and all of the things that or even some acts of God, right? That you live in a drought plagued part of Africa, you live in Mali, whatever it is, right? And your country is suffering from the runaway inflation that can literally never be corrected, short of like adopting the dollar, right? Which, as we all know, the dollar has been debased as well. But what Bitcoin does is it saves people. If everybody in the Central Republic says, forget this currency, we're not using this corrupt paper, we wipe our butts with it, that's it, we use Bitcoin. Now you've given buying power and economic power back to the poorest people on earth, right? So that in itself is a good thing, right? But now you look at rich countries, you look at the UK, you look at Europe, you look at the United States. And again, Peter Schiff has an excellent take on this. The politics in our country, for instance, do not allow a president to raise interest rates high enough to have any meaningful impact on inflation. Okay? It used to be back in the 80s, right? The early 80s when Reagan took office, inflation had been running for a full decade. It was out of control. I think it was like 18 or 20. I mean, it was high, right? The Fed chairman at the time raised interest rates to double digits. That's what he had to do. Raise interest rates to double digits, cause a massive recession, and have basically make borrowing money impossible. And what that did was it balanced out the money supply, right? So it wasn't a bunch of people with tons of cash chasing scarce goods. That's what makes the product go up. If I have a thing, right? If I have a thing, this shirt, and 1 million people have money and they want this one shirt, the price of this shirt is going to go way up, right? That's essentially how inflation works. So that's what he did. And I can't remember the name of that the Fed chairman at the time, but he was not playing politics, right? He didn't care who was in office. He was going to make the decision that was best for the country and the best for the economy. So that worked. That strategy worked. However, since 2007, 2008, that's really when the 0% interest rate, right? The quantitative easing started after the financial crash at the beginning of the recession. Instead of letting the banks go bust, instead of raising interest rates and letting people get foreclosed on, even though there was a ton of that later on, right? Instead of letting the financial institution basically get wiped out, right? And allowing, the best people, the best companies to survive, which is capitalism, the free market. That's what it's supposed to do. It's the best are supposed to win, right? That's how, a healthy economy works. Obama saved the economy for political reasons. He wanted to get reelected, obviously, just like everybody. And so that spawned the next 15 years of quantitative easing, meaning 0% interest rates. Now, why is that a bad thing? It's because we have so much debt, and we've been accumulating debt since the 70s and 80s. We don't manufacture things here anymore. The government's bringing less money in through taxes than it pays out in the form of Medicare, Social Security, the military, you name it. And now the interest rate, the interest payments on the money that we borrow from the Fed is the third line item on the Fed's balance sheet. That's the third most expensive thing we pay for. So now it's almost to a situation where it's impossible to bring that inflation down, and it can't even be corrected. I mean, I don't know how much you would have to raise the interest rates to. You would have to almost bring the economy to a depression in order to do that, right? At least a massive recession. And like Peter Schiff, to me, accurately points out, no government is willing to do that. We are so polarized, Democrats and Republicans, that nobody wants to be left holding the bag for a bad economy, right? So what Chairman Powell is doing right now, he's posturing like he's going to bring interest rates up. And yes, they did bring interest rates up from 2022, and they brought the official interest rate, inflation rate down from 9% to 3%, but that's not going to last. You see now that they're starting to sweat, now that you see these layoffs in the tech industry, you see the real estate, we're in a recession now. Home sales are at a 30-year low. They're not raising the interest rates. And in fact, they're already talking about lowering them because, and when they lower them, that means they start printing money again, because that's the only way they can service the debt is by creating more money to pay the debt. So they create debt just to pay more debt. Do you see how dangerous this could get? So what's happening is your money, your currency is being debased. It buys you less stuff. That's your money buys less. That is what currency debasement, inflation effectively means. It becomes less valuable. It doesn't matter as long as we are the world's reserve currency, though, right? Because countries will still send us goods that they manufacture on credit because they have faith in the dollar. But then what happened? I mean, besides all of this money printing, right? Everybody starts to lose more and more faith. They were losing more and more faith. And then the Ukraine-Russia war happened, right? And what did we do? What did Biden do? He froze the assets, the American money that was sitting in the bank accounts of these Russian oligarchs. Money that was legit, by the way. They had no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing. This was their money, and they froze it in their bank accounts. That's criminal, I would say, right? So they froze that money, billions of dollars. So now the rest of the world looks around, right? Other countries that hold our dollars, and they look around and they go, oh, well, damn, they could do that to us. Like, what stops them from doing that to us if there's a problem? And that, according to a lot of political scientists, was the dagger. That was the point of no return. So now what do you have? you have central governments, China and Russia, have been loading up with gold. Their central banks are no longer buying dollars. They're getting out of dollars and they're hedging it with gold, right? So Peter Schiff is right about that. That's the gold is still the best hedge for now, right? It's just not a way to make money. And that's what I wanted to argue with him about. Brian, do we have him back on the line? Has people got back to us at all? Not yet. So they're loading up with gold, these central banks, right? And clearly now retail investors, private citizens as well. The BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, some of them are already India and China, and I believe India and Russia, and then China and Russia, or one of that combination. They're already trading together oil for other goods, natural gas, resources. They're not doing that in US dollars anymore. That's a big deal because forever, for decades, everybody, other countries who did business with each other used US dollars, right, to make the transactions. They're no longer doing that. So clearly the writing's on the wall. The writing is on the wall for the US and the US dollar. We're moving back to a multipolar world. Neoliberalism and globalization, it didn't really work. I never thought I would say that, to be honest. When I used to study this stuff back in college, back in the mid 2000s, right? But that's kind of where it's going, right? You got Russia is going to control and dominate one part of the world. The US will still be somewhat hegemonic in this region. China will have, a huge influence on probably the Middle East, right? China already has their hooks in the Middle East and Latin America, I might add. They're building bases and freeways and huge airports in places like Peru. Look it up. And the influence of the U.S. is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So pretty soon what's going to happen is major economies are going to say, we're not going to hold any U.S. dollars anymore. And you guys, our inflation could be running at 10 or 15%, 20% inflation. Can you imagine? And our economy is in stagflation, so recession and inflation. Yeah, the dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency. And when that happens, our standard of living falls overnight. The reason the middle class in America lives better than the middle class anywhere else, the reason that poor people in the United States have big screen TVs, they live in habitable places where poor people in the US look like middle class people in most of the rest of the world, especially Europe, right? They own appliances and furniture, and they own cars, sometimes 2 cars. It's because of credit. It's because people make things around the world to ship to us on credit, on faith that we've got that dollar. But guess what? If I'm China and I no longer need the US and our money is no longer useful, I'm saying, hey, no, I'm not. I'll sell you my stuff, but I'm not giving it to you on credit, not with those dollars. And then we're screwed. And now we got to reorganize the affluence. And maybe it'll be a good thing too. Maybe people will just stop consuming less and focus on our spirituality. I doubt it. But anyway, there may be some benefit to it, but the standard of living, the affluence, the ability to buy and own things will just be decimated, and along with it, a huge part of the economy. And how we will build that back up is through Bitcoin. Am I not one of the best color commentators in this business? You were like, Johnny, when are you going to get to the Bitcoin? Don't worry, Bubbas. I took us on a long detour to take a look at the Grand Canyon, but now I got us back on the interstate, okay? And we're going to be back in LA before nightfall. Bitcoin will be the solution, I think. It will be the solution to everything that I just described, the multipolarity of the world, the breaking up of the dollar, the downgrading of the dollar, no longer being the world reserve currency, etc. For all these reasons, the inflation, of course. So Bitcoin backed by gold. I think that's what ultimately it's going to be, right? Because you have to have everybody would have to accept Bitcoin to be able to use it as a currency. But I think we're going to, I mean, there's no question we're going to get there. You're already seeing it, right? Like, and it starts with rich people. It starts with, you know, internet gurus putting their house up for sale, selling it to Jeff Bezos for, you know, 200 Bitcoin, right? This guy listed his Miami mansion for 150 Bitcoin. So it's starting with them, but now you're seeing it. You're even seeing it in retail stores. I drive around, right? You see it at small little electronic stores in LA. Bitcoin accepted right here. So there will come a time when everything is priced in through Bitcoin. And I don't think there's going to be some kind of cataclysmic or violent event. You know, people for years said that, oh, if you try to undermine the Fed, right? If people try to go around the federal government, there's going to be civil war in this country. I don't think so. And proof is with these ETFs. It's with Wall Street throwing their money into Bitcoin ETFs. It's going to be through there, man. They're going to have, nobody wants chaos. Very few people want chaos, I should say, and especially not wealthy people, people in government. Sure, they greedy and corrupt and evil many of times and incompetent, of course, but nobody wants to see the country decimated. That's bad for us. That's bad for them. Nobody wants to live in chaos, especially not when you're rich and you got money. You want to keep the party going. So when they see that Bitcoin is the way out of this death spiral that is the debased dollar and the runaway inflation and the end of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, that will be the savior. Okay. And when that technology gets adopted, Bubbas, who knows what Bitcoin is worth then? I mean, you see every thumbnail you see on the internet, it's like Bitcoin at 15 trillion. I mean, yeah, it's that revolutionary. It's literally taking mankind into the fourth phase of humanity, right? That's really what I see. You know, first it was hunter gathering, then agriculture and farming took over hunter and gathering. Then it was the industrial revolution. Now we're in the fourth revolution, and it's being led by Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more broadly. So the point is, the value is, I mean, you can't even calculate how valuable this is going to be. You know what I mean? So that's why whether you buy now when Bitcoin is in at 64,000, or you wait and you get a really good deal at 39,000 or 25,000, or you wait until it hits 74 and starts moving and you toss your money in. It doesn't matter. And I know this because I listen to all different kinds of opinions and perspectives from different people in the know, different Bitcoin gurus, right? I'm not talking about people like Warren Buffett. I'm not talking about people like Peter Schiff. Their way of doing things is done. They offer zero solutions, basically, and yet they, crap on Bitcoin because it's the new thing. It's the new wave. A lot of old people from the old guard can't get their mind around it. You know what I mean? So don't pay attention to them. Pay attention to what people are doing. And Bitcoin managers, hedge fund managers, private citizens, everybody is tossing. Day traders, swing traders, they're called, right? So it's people that are buying and selling rapidly. They buy low and then sell on the highs. Even they disagree on where Bitcoin is going to be a month from now. They do not disagree on where Bitcoin is going to be 5 years from now, certainly not 20 years from now. It is going to be, it's going to overtake whatever the highs of the S&P and the NASDAQ were, right? And it's what allowed many of our parents who grew, people like me that grew up middle class with baby boomer parents, who, got good jobs and started putting their money in the 80s into the stock market, right? And their 401ks, in pension funds and things like that just grew their money in the index, we call them, which is a bunch of diversity. It's diversifying all of these different blue chip companies. That's what indexing means, right? And it generally, does about 7% a year. That made many of our parents wealthy, right? After 40 years. That's what Bitcoin is going to be, but it's going to be way higher than 7%. Tell you that, Bubbas. It is going to be way higher. And so, I think the S&P the traditional stock market is good. It's going to collapse, or it's going to take a major contraction with the recession coming up. Buy some of that if you got the money. It's not bad to buy low. Okay, buy some and buy gold, right? But Bitcoin, it doesn't matter if it's $500, $1,000 a month. You can buy fractions of it, right? You should be treating it like God's perfect 401k plan, That's what I think. I mean, it is a wonderful piece of technology. And by the way, what mostly everybody who studies and understands Bitcoin tells you is that when we officially start this new bull cycle, right? Whenever that is, 6 months from now, a year from now, whenever we crack the $74,000 to $100,000 range, they think that this cycle will go until 2034. Okay. So you start chipping money in every month for the next 10 years. Think about what it's going to be worth. It's incredible. And, guys like Michael Saylor are keeping it in there. They don't plan on selling much of it. Now, they have taken profit, right? They've sold some shares, but that's probably just to raise more money to dump back into Bitcoin. Because if you're my age, right? If you're, in your 30s, pushing 40, or even younger, hopefully, I am talking to YouTube after all. By the time you're 50, 60 years old, you might not even need to sell Bitcoin for cash. It could be the cash by then. It could be like, the dominant currency. And that's a fascinating reason also that I want to talk to Peter Schiff, is because he points out aptly that it used to be different countries had competing economies. It wasn't just the dollar. You had like 3 or 4 different kinds of currency. That was early America, right? Early America, you had these gold coins. You had gold. You had, you could barter. You could trade for cattle, whatever you had. And then you got the dollar. So you had like 4 different kinds of currencies. So I still do think the American dollar as we know it will exist in 30 or 40 years. But I think just the dominant currency will be Bitcoin. So you can probably buy most of your things with Bitcoin by then. Okay. And obviously it's going to take a long time. They have to figure out that technology. And maybe I'm way off. Maybe I'm just putting blind faith into it the way I do the Lord. You know what I mean? But to me, like the Lord is setting us on this trajectory. He's saving humanity through us, through faith and solutions. He is going to save mankind in many ways from going back to the Stone Age, which is what, if you just let the government keep printing money is what's going to happen. You're going to take us back to 1929 in Weimar, Germany. So, yes, do I put faith in Bitcoin because I don't want to lose all my money that I put into it? Yes. But what is the American dollar if not faith? So more and more people need to get the word out, right? Like I'm getting it. I get it. More people need to buy into it. And once more people buy into it, then it really becomes real. And I think that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing by the fact that, yes, today in the halving, you have not seen a collapse. You have not seen it collapse to nothing or, 15,000. You've seen people, $64,000 of Bitcoin worth keeping their money in there because they know that they're long on it, right? It's regrouping for and doing what tends to happen with all assets after a bull run. Comes down a little bit, it regroups, and then boom, 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 it starts chugging back up, right? And it hits these healthy plateaus on its way up. So it's about playing the long game. Figure out how to make cash, whatever you do. Figure out how to make money. It is truly the most important thing besides the Lord and family. It is the most important thing. And take that money and toss it into your retirement account, which is Bitcoin, right? And some other things too. I like Tesla. Tesla's a really good buy right now. Probably going to put some shekels into that before too long. But I think the stock market's going to go down even more. So I want to see if it goes any lower than that. So yeah, where are we at, Brian? How's it going over there in that chat? Everybody happy? Do we have any questions?
Yeah, somebody asked, how do you start?
How do you start? Well, first of all, you do have to have money. That is a requirement. But literally, it could be Michael Sayer would say $100 a month will make you good returns, right? So I would say if you can put in $100 a week, I always push myself, right? You're working a job, you're making 25 bucks an hour, you've got a full-time job, maybe your take-home pay every 2 weeks is $1,800. I would be putting 20% aside, tossing it into either Bitcoin ETFs or pure Bitcoin. Now, if you're kind of a doofus like me, you're a technological Rain Man. No. That makes me sound like I'm smart. I'm trying not to swear here or say the R word. If you are an incompetent boomer like myself who struggles with basic technology, right? You might not want to buy pure Bitcoin because pure Bitcoin you have to store in your wallet and you could lose your password, and it's another step you have to take. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Get a Fidelity account, okay? Download the app, link that Fidelity app to your bank account, right? So now you can just start drawing money out of it every 2 weeks, right? And buy the Bitcoin ETFs. Look them up. There's 3 or 4 of them, and they're all basically controlled by either BlackRock or another Wall Street firm. Now, what you want to do is just simply buy that. Go to the ticker, right? And just buy it, right? The Fidelity app, I think it's FDL is the symbol, and then you just buy that. So I have a lot of my Bitcoin in ETFs because it just takes it's one less step. And that's essentially that the upside is that you don't have pure Bitcoin that you could maybe lose in your crypto wallet and not get back. That has happened to me before, but it's just don't lose your password. Okay. Figure it out. But, the downside to owning ETFs is that you have to pay a fee. It's traded by Fidelity. So you have to pay a fund fee. Now, right now, because they want people to keep buying ETFs, they're basically offering free or very low fees for trading. So I think it's a good idea to own both. So it's kind of up to you. But I would just, if I were making, as I said, bringing home $1,800 every 2 weeks, I'd be putting 20% in and not even looking at it. Okay. That's what I would be doing because I think it's going to perform much, much better than the traditional S&P 500. If you want to go ahead and wait till we're in a full-blown recession, I think we're already in one. But if you want to wait till we're in a full-blown recession and the S&P 500 tanks even more and you want to chip a little bit of money into that, buy low, that's okay too. But once, I'm telling you guys, and I'm going to get off on this, once Bitcoin passes 1 billion users, it will no longer be what's called a risk-on asset, a volatile asset, meaning that it will no longer rise and fall with the stock market. That is an incredibly good thing. That means that no matter how bad the stock market's performing, how bad the government's performing, just like gold, it will not only be a hedge, but it'll have that technology that's going to be adopted and used in the future. So its value will just keep going up and up no matter how much society is suffering, right? And the more money the government prints, I'm at the point now where I'm like, keep printing money, keep saving, keep bailing out the economy, Fed, okay? Because that's just going to make my price of assets, whether that's real estate, gold, or Bitcoin or stocks, keep doing well and keep going up. So it's you just got to make the money first. You got to make that original bag. But like I said, even if you work a job, keep chipping it in there. And if you're single and don't have any kids, I mean, keep it that way. I think your best bet is to find a way to get out of this mess that's coming, right? Is to figure out a way to become financially free. And you got to deal with what's happening on the inside too, right? It won't make you happy necessarily. Happiness is overrated. It's about meaning. It's about meaning in life. It buys your time back for sure. Unless you do what we do, and that's create incessant content. But we're playing a long game, baby. You know what I mean? That's what we're doing. So yes, your job is to become financially free, and Bitcoin is one of the best ways to do it long term. You don't believe me? Go watch Robert Kiyosaki. I know he's kind of a nut, but he makes some very good points. He's filthy rich. Go listen to Raoul Paul. But don't listen to Peter Schiff. Don't listen to guys that don't offer you any solutions. Listen to them when it comes to the value of gold as a hedge and what's happening right now with the impending economic chaos and everything that we spoke about with the debasement of the dollar and what the Fed is doing for political reasons, et cetera, et cetera. He's right about that. But ultimately, you have to have something that's going to offer solutions. He offers none of that. What Bitcoin offers is a way out. So go study up. I'm not saying I'm a guru, but I've actually enjoyed doing this episode very much. We may have Peter Schiff. We may be doing a Zoom meeting, a Zoom interview with Peter Schiff after this, unless he's watching this live, in which case we will never hear from him again. Thank you so much for watching. Please before you get out of here, leave us a comment. Let's push the video up. Follow me on Instagram at Mr. Johnny Mitchell. I'm going to be on the road doing stand-up comedy. June 20th, I will be at the Tempe Improv in Phoenix, Arizona, one night only, June 20th. June 21st, 22nd, I will be at the Big Laughs Comedy Club in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then Skankfest, I will be at Skankfest, the best comedy festival in the world, September 27th to the 29th in Las Vegas. Get your tickets, JohnnyMitchell.biz. There we go, JohnnyMitchell.biz. Or the link is in my Instagram bio. That's probably better. My ex-girlfriend has all the passwords to my website, and she won't give them to me. So I don't know how to put the links in there. I might have to get a new handle. Anyways, we'll figure it out. We might get back together. Go to my Instagram bio. It's all in my link tree. Brian, can they go to my link tree? Can they go to linktree.com/Johnny Mitchell? Let's do that. Hang tight, guys. Don't leave the chat. Hang on. Keep it pumping. Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. You guys are loving this right now.
Johnny Mitchell?
Yeah. I think so. Brian's looking it up. Yeah, it worked. Linktree.com/Johnny Mitchell. JOHNNY Mitchell.com. Linktree.com/Johnny Mitchell has all my dates on there and links to my podcast. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next week. Take care. Peace out.